It's March 28th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the wildfires here in South Korea. Efforts to put out the wildfires that have engulfed the southeastern regions have continued for over a week now, with the small amount of rain on Thursday having done little to tame the blaze. At least 28 people are dead due to the fire. South Korea is still anxiously waiting for the Constitutional Court to publicize a ruling date for President Yoon's impeachment. With no announcement yet as of the last Friday in March, the ruling is likely to happen in April. Canada says it'll hit back at the U.S. with its own trade actions in response to President Donald Trump's 25% auto tariffs announced on Wednesday, with a warning that relations with the U.S. are over. Our top story this morning, the wildfires in the southern Gyeongsang-do provinces are still burning, with reports now indicating this could be the worst wildfire disaster on record. We turn to our Kim Jung-sil on the line. Jung-sil, can you give us a breakdown of the situation? I mean, how severe is the damage at this point?
Well, thanks, Nami. It's devastating. Wildfires that began simultaneously from last weekend have already claimed dozens of lives. As of this morning, the confirmed death toll stands at 28, with at least 37 others injured. The latest confirmed death was reported yesterday afternoon in Cheongseong-gun County, Gyeongsang-buk-do Province, where an 80-year-old woman who had been missing was found dead in a collapsed house caused by the fire. Many of the victims were elderly, aged between 60 and 80. Unfortunately, these individuals either couldn't escape the rapidly spreading flames in time or died while attempting to evacuate from their homes or nursing homes in cars. The Korea Forest Service said just about an hour ago that it is aiming to completely extinguish the main fire in 6 cities and counties in Gyeongsang-buk-do region within the day. Minister Im Sang-sop stated that more than 45,000 hectares are affected by the wildfire. The astounding number is equivalent to an area larger than 70% of Seoul, making it potentially the largest wildfire disaster in the country's history. Over 2,600 structures, including homes, temples, and cultural heritage sites, have been reportedly damaged, and around 37,000 people have been evacuated, with more than 8,000 still taking shelter.
Jung-sil, that is truly devastating. Now, let's shift our focus to the firefighting efforts. I'm afraid to say the rainfall in the area last night didn't do much in containing the fire, right?
Well, Tommy, you're definitely right. Some rain did fall, and obviously it was a blessing for the firefighters, but it wasn't enough to contain the fires fully. Now, take a look at this map. Uiseong-gun and neighboring regions where the fires spread with the prevailing winds, along with Sancheong-gun in Gyeongsang-namdo province in the south, are still battling the flames. Now, the average containment rate of the Uiseong wildfire is around 85%, with Uiseong itself at 95%. Officials are aiming for full extinguishment by the end of the day. It's a crucial moment with progress made overnight, and authorities hopeful for full containment due to calmer winds and yesterday's rain. Now, due to the severity of the damage, the government has recently designated these affected areas as special designated, disaster zones. This designation ensures that significant resources will be allocated for relief and recovery efforts. Now, let's look at the areas where fires have been fully contained. As you can see in the map, thanks to yesterday's much-needed rain, large fires in Ulsan, Muju, as well as Gimhae and Okcheon were successfully put out as of late last night. Thanks to yesterday's humidity and progress in containment efforts, this could mark a critical window to fully control the fires, with authorities focused on achieving complete containment by the end of the day. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Dami.
Indeed, Jung-sil, thank you for that update. In other news, it seems the month of March will pass without the Constitutional Court ruling on President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment case. Now, the political stakes are higher than ever after opposition leader Lee Jae-myung was cleared in a criminal case, boosting his chances for a potential presidential run. Our Uiseong reports.
Suspense remains over President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment case as the Constitutional Court deliberates for more than a month. As of Friday, 31 days have passed since Yoon's final trial hearing was held, marking a record in terms of the time taken by the court compared to previous presidential impeachment cases, which took at most 14 days. As the judicial bench typically gives advance notice of at least 2 working days before a ruling, the court is now expected to issue its decision in April before 2 justices retire mid-month. With ambiguity over the when and what the verdict will be, there's growing tension brewing in political circles as Yoon's impeachment would spark an early presidential election within 2 months. The opposition party is pushing for Yoon's swift removal, as their party leader Lee Jae-myung is currently the pollsters' favourite among presidential hopefuls. On Wednesday, Lee was acquitted in one of his 5 criminal trials, overturning a ruling by a lower court last year that handed Lee a 1-year sentence and a 2-year suspension from office for violating the election law. This cleared a major hurdle to gaining his party's full endorsement for the race. The ruling People Power Party had been hoping for the opposite result, leading to cries of foul against the justice system. There's now even greater pressure directed at the Constitutional Court. The opposition is calling for Yoon's immediate impeachment, while the ruling party is demanding his return to power, as in the case of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, whose impeachment case was dismissed on Monday. Public rallies also continue outside and around the court. Recent polls indicate that 51% of voters want a change of government, while 37% wish to maintain the current administration. Those for and against impeachment also recorded around 58% and 37% respectively, underscoring how closely contested the political environment remains. The survey shows equal 36% support for the ruling and opposition parties, with the PPP gaining 3 percentage points compared to the previous week. As the court's ruling stretches on, expectations for Yoon's impeachment was down by 6 percentage points from last week, while those expecting his return hit 39%.
Amid prolonged uncertainty, one thing remains clear. This will not merely be a constitutional decision, but a ruling that inevitably brings significant political ramifications. Uiseong, Arirang News.
So time is ticking for the court to make its final call on President Yoon as the nation's leader. And as reported by our Uiseong, the big day will likely come in April. Let's turn to Professor Baek Eun-suk for more. Great to see you, Professor Baek.
Good morning to you.
So we are running out of our patience, or maybe we learned to be patient through this difficult time. It's still possible the court will publicize a date today, right?
Yes, it is still possible, but I must say it is not highly likely. As the reporter mentioned earlier, in the past, the court announced the ruling date at least 2 or 3 days in advance. And if the court wants to issue its ruling early next week, it could announce the date today. However, today being Friday and the weekend coming up, if the date is announced today, I think there will be a greater risk of a leak over the weekend. And a leaked court ruling after several weeks of already unexpected delay will be quite damaging to the court. And in addition, the pro-impeachment and anti-impeachment rallies and protests would also intensify over the weekend. And so I think the court is not likely to announce the date today. But the bottom line, of course, is very clear. The sooner the ruling comes, the better for the country.
Well, if you are right here, Professor Baek, that means we have to wait until next week for the court to announce the ruling date. Now, if I am correct, a by-election set for April 2nd, which is next Wednesday.
Right.
Now, some say the verdict may come on Thursday or Friday after the by-elections on Wednesday. What do you think?
Right. The court ruling in the president's impeachment case has huge political ramifications. And that could affect the by-election results. So just as a matter of prudence, the court may not want to issue a ruling before the by-elections. And so election is on Wednesday, April 2nd. So if we take that into account, and as a matter of prudence, once again, then maybe after the by-election, so Thursday, Friday at the earliest.
Well, ruling date still in limbo, but what's widely expected is that things will wrap up before April 18th. That's when 2 of the 8 court justices retire. I have to ask you, what happens if the 2 justices retire before the final verdict is delivered?
I really do hope that doesn't happen. That would make the situation already very complicated situation even more. I guess the exact impact of their retirement may depend on what is the current situation of the court. If you have essentially consensus more or less of all members, then 2 retiring and then the ruling comes afterwards wouldn't be much of a difference. But then, given the fact that the court has taken a lot longer time than anybody expected, which may indicate within the court there is no clear consensus, in which case 2 retiring, again, that would make a further delay in the ruling all the more possible. So once again, I do hope that doesn't happen. And I'm sure the court will try its best to issue its ruling before 2 justices retire on the April 18th.
Well, on top of that, we cannot not talk about how Prime Minister Han Duck-soo is under this great pressure to appoint Justice nominee Ma Eun-hyuk ever since he returned to office. It looks like he is not going to appoint Ma, but will Yoon's impeachment ruling be delayed if Ma is appointed by Han?
Right, just to follow up on the earlier question, if 2 current members retire, then we would have only 6 members.
Right.
Theoretically, if all 6 members agree, and if there is a consensus, then it's possible to issue a ruling with 6 members. But again, given this long delay that we've seen, that may not be the case. Then 2 retiring, and then you would not even have enough number of justices to issue a ruling in this case. And if additional member is appointed, again, depending on what the current situation of the court right now may be, but still additional member may require at least some part of the hearings to be in one way or another to be repeated, so that the newest member will be fully aware of the legal issues and the arguments from both sides that have been offered during the hearings. And so I think it's inevitable that the appointment of this new member would become a reason for further delay in the process.
Well, I'd like to hear your personal take on it. Now, if Han does appoint Ma, eventually, when do you think he will appoint him? After the ruling for President Yoon?
Let me answer the question this way. I think the Constitutional Court addressed the matter not once but twice. The first time when the National Assembly asked the court to rule on it, the court made it very clear that it was a constitutional violation for then acting President Choi Sang-mok not to appoint Ma. So court made it very clear the first time. And as a part of its ruling in Prime Minister Han's impeachment case, the justices basically said that he's not appointing the new members to the Constitutional Court did actually violate the Constitution, but that violation was not serious enough for impeachment. So I think on 2 occasions, the court made it very clear that it is a constitutional violation for Ma not to have been appointed. So I think he has to be appointed at some point.
All right. Thank you for your insightful comments this morning, Professor Baek. As always, you have a good day.
The same to you. Thank you.
Countries around the world are quickly mapping out their own plans to cope with Trump's 25% auto tariffs. Canada warns it'll respond with reciprocal tariffs. Uiseong has more.
Earlier this week, President Donald Trump signed off on 25% tariffs on all cars and auto parts imported into the United States. In response, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called it a direct attack on his country and vowed to respond to Trump's latest tariff policy.
President Trump announced 25% tariffs against our auto industry. And this is a direct attack, to be clear, a direct attack on the very workers that I stood in front of, uniform workers. We've announced, of course, retaliatory tariffs. We have other options for those retaliatory tariffs. I have asked for a meeting, I will convene rather, a meeting of the Canada-US cabinet tomorrow to discuss our trade options.
Carney said Canada's longtime bilateral relationship with the U.S. involving the economy, security, and military cooperation is over. Instead, he vowed Canada would respond with retaliatory tariffs that will have maximum impact on the U.S. On the other side of the U.S. border, Mexico is negotiating for an exemption for its critical auto industry. Speaking from Washington after holding talks with U.S. officials, Mexico's economy minister Marcelo Ebrard said negotiation talks are ongoing to ensure that Mexico gets preferential treatment. The minister said that with the recent tariff policies of the U.S. administration, Mexico must protect jobs and economic activity in the country. While Mexico is seeking a more peaceful approach to Trump's tariff policies, both Canada and the European Union have been looking to fight the U.S. president's tariffs. In response, Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social on Thursday and said that larger tariffs could be placed on the EU and Canada if they work jointly to do economic harm to the USA. While the EU delayed its first set of retaliatory tariffs, including a 50% tariff on U.S. bourbon, Trump threatened to impose a 200% tariff on all wines and other alcoholic products from the EU if the bloc went ahead with tariffs. Uiseong, Arirang News.
Today marks the 10th West Sea Defense Day, a day remembering the heroes lost during military clashes near the de facto inter-Korean military maritime border in the West Sea. South Korea's Navy held intensive drills this week to honor the day. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung was there.
Amidst the thin sea fog covering the West Sea, a simulated North Korean vessel crosses the northern limit line on the West Sea, moving southward. South Korean Navy ships and personnel are ordered to deploy in combat formation for training.
전투 배치, 훈련, 둘, 셋!
6 naval ships lined up one after another with the 3,600-ton frigate, the RKS Chungnam, at the front, fired guns targeting their simulated maritime target before maneuvering away in different directions. This naval maneuver training in the West Sea is to mark the 10th West Sea Defense Day, a day to remember those who lost their lives in a series of unprovoked attacks by the North near the northern limit line. The day, falling on the fourth Friday of March every year, pays tribute to the 55 fallen sailors and Marines from the Second Battle of Yeonpyeong in 2002, the sinking of RKS Cheonan, and the shelling of Yeonpyeong-do Island in 2010. In memorial of the fallen, the Navy conducted intensive maneuvering exercises for 3 days until Thursday, simultaneously on the East, West, and South Seas, with some of the exercises open to the press.
The Navy will engrave the spirit of victory shown by the 55 warriors who defended the West Sea in our hearts. And if the enemy provokes again, we will strike back forcefully and firmly protect our seas.
Since the military clashes with North Korea while defending the western maritime border, the South Korean Navy strengthened the combat power of its naval fleets, replacing outdated warships with new frigates equipped with advanced hybrid propulsion and sonar systems.
The ROKS Daejeon was built with our domestic defense technology, and it's especially a core frigate of the fleet with outstanding anti-submarine capabilities.
With the patriotic spirit of the fallen in mind, The Navy vows to firmly safeguard the waters even today. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Nearly 4,800 outbound international flights will be operated per week at domestic airports this summer, exceeding pre-COVID levels. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport announced on Friday that it has finalized the summer flight operation schedule as requested by domestic and foreign airlines. From March 30th to October 25th, 4,783 outbound international flights will operate per week on 246 routes. This marks a 5.6% increase from the summer of 2024. It also marks a 3.6% increase from 2019, before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. The U.S. government has intensified its crackdown on foreign students involved in anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian activities, leading to the revocation of visas and the detention of students. On Thursday local time, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the State Department has revoked the visas of over 300 foreign students. The action is part of the Trump administration's broader initiative to identify and expel individuals who are believed to be supportive of Hamas. Rubio told reporters on a visit to Guyana, "Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visas." Among those affected is Rümeysa Öztürk, a 30-year-old Turkish national and PhD student at Tufts University who was apprehended on Tuesday. The Department of Homeland Security alleges that Öztürk engaged in activities supporting Hamas, though specific evidence has not been disclosed. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said U.S. President Donald Trump's renewed interest in acquiring Greenland was serious. At the International Arctic Forum in Murmansk on Thursday, Putin stated the U.S. had a long-standing interest in the mineral-rich territory. He said that while the Greenland issue does not directly involve Russia, the U.S. plans have hold historical origins and aren't just extravagant talks. Meanwhile, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has reiterated that Greenland is not for sale and reaffirmed Denmark's commitment to supporting Greenland's autonomy. Also referring to U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance's planned visit to the U.S. military base in Greenland, she stated the visit is clearly not about what Greenland needs or wants. Over in Egypt, 6 Russian tourists died on Thursday when a sightseeing submarine sank off the coast of the city of Hurghada. Others have been successfully saved, with some sustaining injuries. The vessel named Sinbad was carrying 45 tourists from various countries, including India and Sweden, along with 5 Egyptian crew members. The incident occurred approximately 1,000 meters offshore during a routine underwater tour of the Red Sea's coral reefs, where the recreational submarine dived to depths of 20 to 25 meters to showcase the marine life. The cause of the sinking is still under investigation. Finally, Art Basel Hong Kong 2025 opened to the public on Friday at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center, featuring 240 galleries from 42 countries. An off-site art installation has also been created at a high-end shopping center near the official show venue. The fair showcases a diverse range of artistic practices, including performance and digital art, with over half of the participating galleries originating from the Asia-Pacific region. Art Basel 2025, the largest and most prestigious event in the Asia-Pacific region, will run from March 28th to 30th.
We did get some rain, but it was not nearly enough to ease the dry conditions, especially across the Gyeongsang-do region, where dry weather alerts remain in place. And today's strong winds will be another big concern. Places like Chungcheong-namdo's west coast, the Jeollado region, and Jeju are already under strong wind advisories. Meanwhile, we do have some rain falling along the east coast and Jeju this morning, with up to 5 millimeters of rain in the forecast and snow snow in the mountains of Gangwon-do province. It's feeling much colder today. Afternoon highs will be 2 to 15 degrees lower this afternoon. Spring cold is here to stay through the weekend. But this afternoon, Seoul gets up to 12 degrees. Daegu and Busan make it to 15 degrees Celsius under sunny skies with improved air quality in most parts. After some spotty rain in the capital and Gangwon-do province tomorrow, it's back to dry and sunny conditions for the time being. And with these dry and windy conditions, the fire risk remains very high, so please be extra cautious with any open flames.
That wraps up our Friday edition of Arirang News. A new day at Arirang will be back next Monday at the same time, 10 a.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.